The Opinion with Michael J. Today we're going to tackle conservative ideology and where it is as at today, May the 6th, 2025. And you say, what do you mean by where it's at as at today? Well, what we've observed ever since COVID-19, or just after COVID-19 and the inflation spike, we're dealing with a fascist ideology that's omnipresent around the world, and most importantly has taken hold of the United States under the stewardship of a guy by the name of Donald J. Trump. Now if you say, well, what's the worry about Donald J. Trump? Guy's a predator. Guy's a bully. Guy all his life's been a criminal. I had a family member by marriage that brought Donald Trump into the Russian fold to launder money for the Russian oligarchs, set up their systems, as well, but the Colombian cartel, Mexican cartels for drug laundering money as well. And this created the Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, and the Pandora Papers. My apologies, Pandora Papers. Nonetheless, got to give you a little bit of history and where I'm coming from. Now, you might say, well, man, you're married to a blue blood family, so you must be an elitist. Well, guess what? I was on my own at 14, managed to get a grade 9 education, maybe became a millionaire by 29, but, I got targeted by these ultra elites that want to control the money. So, based on my experiences, I may have a different outlook than most people. So, let's talk about conservative ideology, how it's affecting Canadians right now in the present. In the present. Yikes. Does anybody live in the present? Can you imagine that? Living in the present. Everybody's living in the past, for the most part, living in the future. Nobody's living in the present. Nothing matters but the present. Think about it. So, we're dealing with a situation where Canadians need to build bridges, not walls. And this may be hard to wrap your head around, and it requires cognitive awareness. You say, what? Yeah, cognitive awareness. Like, I get some dumbass friggin' comments in chat, or in the comments section of videos, from people that are totally ignorant to what's really going on. Now, that may seem somewhat harsh, and that's going to push their buttons and trigger them to push back. That's always been the case. Never read the Bible, but I remember hearing a certain metaphor. Forgive them, for they do not know of what they do. So there you go. This is where we're coming from. Nothing personal. Just stating it the way we see it. So this is AI, and this is, you got to take this, you got to use discernment in everything that's presented to you, even with AI, because that can be manipulated as well. So, neoliberalism is a political and economic philosophy that advocates for free market capitalism, minimal government intervention in the economy, and deregulation. It gained prominence in the late 20th century, 1900s, as a reaction against Keynesian policies, Martin Keynes, and is often associated with figures like Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. And you see this with the Republican movement You see this within the UK and the colonies. The Commonwealth, they say. So here's the main points of neoliberalism: deregulation, privatization, free trade, promoting open international markets with minimal trade barriers, tax cuts, and reduced social welfare programs. Now I'm going to pivot to the midpoint here, free trade. We've seen that with Brian Mulroney, but yet with Donald Trump, he says he promotes free trade, but he's putting tariffs in place to say, pay to play, pay to play. So, debates, criticisms, increased inequality. Neoliberal policies have been criticized for exacerbating wealth inequality and creating a two-tiered system of public services. You see that with Ontario, with the Doug Ford government, with health services, and you see that with the Alberta government of Danielle Smith, which is conservative, different conservative, I think what they call themselves, UCP, but still trying to create a two-tier healthcare system. Environmental damage. The emphasis on free markets and deregulation has been linked to environmental degradation and resource depletion. Well, we see that. Oil pipelines. Get rid of these caps. Carbon caps, get rid of them. That's the reality. Social instability. Some argue that neoliberalism's focus on individual responsibility and market forces can undermine social cohesion and create instability. Well, we see that in the YouTube influencers that are partisan, that take analysis, they take fact, and they conflate that into opinion and create truth from fiction. And that's a dangerous road to go down. And loss of public services. The privatization of essential services like healthcare and education have led to concerns about quality and access. If you look at Ontario, under the Conservative government of Mike Harris, deregulation, privatization, the Walkerton Institute, the water supply got tainted. People died. So, examples of neoliberal policies. The privatization of British Telecom under Margaret Thatcher, the deregulation of the financial industry in the U.S., including the elimination of the Glass-Steagall Act, the implementation of austerity measures in European countries after the 2008 financial crisis. So that's what we're dealing with, folks. But now, what we really need to understand is, and this is just an observation, first I'm just going to reinforce, time for Canadians to build bridges, not walls. Bridges, not walls. The U.S. with tariffs, building walls. It's not a good way to make friends. It's not a good way to help one another. So, out of all this, I've had an observation that has struck my being with resounding effect. This is going to be hard for a conservative to wrap their head around. They actually support the wealthy agenda. They are the guys supporting the elitists. The followers of the party say, no, the liberals, carnies, the elitist. But I got to tell you something. Everything the Conservative Party is doing, based on Friedman economics. Now I'm going to go back to Pierre Poilievre, and a guy will say, oh, you're targeting a guy you hate. Got nothing to do with hate. Let's talk reality. And the truth sometimes hurts. But the truth is the truth. And my truth may be different from your truth. So try to embrace the differences. Use discernment. and understand if it does resonate with you, if it does make sense, maybe it's worthwhile to look at altering your perspective. So that's where we're at. Now, surprisingly enough, the liberals support the working class. You say, what? Is that possible? I've been told everything that is the opposite of that. Can you believe it? Well, tax cuts. Lowering taxes, particularly for businesses and high-income earners. Reduce social welfare programs. Privatization. Who benefits by these tax cuts? They're always given tax cuts. The thought process behind the tax cuts is, well, we'll give it to corporations, we'll give it to the rich, and it'll trickle down to the average guy. And guess what? Excuse me. Guess what? It doesn't happen. So, the conservatives support Friedman economics, Friedman theory. And that's based on representations based on Pierre Poilievre's thesis back in university, his representations to Jordan B. Peterson in a video that got 50 million views. That's how Jordan B. Peterson validates a person's worth to society and the amount of views they get. It means crap if it's bullshit. Just calling it the way I see it. And the liberals support a hybrid Keynes theory and Friedman theory. Yeah, imagine that, eh? So they've got a hybrid theory. Now, here's the deal. Conservative way of politicking, the conservative way of governing is not the same way it was 45 years ago. It's changed a lot. And then you've got to look at the way Doug Ford, Daniel Smith are operating in Canada. You've got to look at the way Donald Trump and the Republicans have morphed into in the United States of America. You're going to see in the future, the United States is going to break itself up, but it will build itself back stronger than ever. They just take time. But we see the influence on the Conservative Party and the followers of the Conservative Party here in Canada. So the $2 million question is this. It used to be the $1 million question, but due to inflation, yikes, inflation? Yeah. Nobody's dealt with that lever of economics and macro and microeconomic theory to revise that framework and create a situation that helps people instead of just always penalizing people, but that's where we're at. And we're not in a position to deal with that at the moment. Something to look for down the road. So, the $1 million, $2 million, maybe it's a $3 million question. Inflation, gets out of hand at times. Why does the working class support the conservatives that support the wealth agenda? This is the real question you need to ask yourself. Why does the working class support the conservatives that in all actuality support the wealth agenda? And we get into a situation that we see down in the States that's starting to become prevalent up here in Canada, and that is a two-party system. But it's us against them. It doesn't matter really whether we lose sight of the real purpose of government and governance and get caught up in playing the game of whose way is better. And I'm going to give you an example of that, and I'm going to use the United States, Roe versus Wade, anti-abortion, right to life. Spent over 50 years, divided a country. Supreme Court gets stacked. The guys that changed Roe versus Wade as precedents for over 50 years, during their committee interrogations, said Roe versus Wade as precedents, we're not going to change it. But guess what? They lied. But my point is that a country is divided for over 50 years, taking a position this way, my way or the highway, my way or the highway, and forcing and projecting that upon each other back and forth, dividing the government, dividing the people. So in order to evolve as society should, like, you like to think you're an intelligent human being. As far as the sentient beings on this earth, you're supposed to be the most intelligent. So that requires to evolve a bit. But because we just keep pulling history that never worked in the past, try to keep applying it to the present, and then we wonder why nothing works. So awareness is key. The ability not to attach and the ability not to create expectations is the key factor here. You're going to say, how the heck is that possible? Well, I'm going to go down create another example for you to try to provide relevance and impact to make you look at things somewhat differently. And it's called marriage. Ooh, the old marriage thing. Married with children? No, just marriage. Why do people get married? Well, they claim it's supposed to be unconditional love. Is it really unconditional love? Because you create attachments and you create expectations. Woman says, I want security. There you go. She says, I want security. I want somebody that's like me. And during the romantic session period, where the endorphins are just friggin' out of control, it was there. But then you got to start living life. And damn, that burping and farting wasn't what they were expecting. So there's another condition. There's another expectations. So we create these attachments and expectations so that people get involved in relationships. And guess what happens? It's not unconditional. Not unconditional whatsoever. So you're setting yourself up for failure. You're not willing to embrace the differences and coexist in a harmonious manner because your ego and your mind gets involved in the process. And that's where we're at in society. And that pervades within society bubbles up to governance. It's a human element of the human being. It was somewhat worsened by the Darwinian theory of survival of the fittest, trying to make a human being into an animal and creating that within the cranial structure of a human being. Once you understand the PSC, the prefrontal cortex, and how it filters your conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind, you will not change the patterns and loops and belief systems you've created. You got to wake up, pals. Meanwhile, everybody says wokeism. Wokeism's bad. Well, if wokeism encompasses benevolence and compassion, how is it bad? You're just trying to create something that does not exist. So now we're gonna filter this down to something a little more simple. A little more simple? God, I'm a grammar teacher. I never had a grammar teacher. That grammar teacher's not going to friggin' like me for that. Holy moly. Let's look at this. This is an economist. He's a United Kingdom economist. And the topic's neoliberalism. So you're going to say, what is neoliberalism? Holy crap, I better actually bring that topic up. This is what I was missing earlier. Neoliberalism is a political and economic philosophy that advocates for free markets, capitalism, minimal government intervention in the economy, and deregulation. So it gained prominence in the late 20th century as a reaction against Keynesian policies, and it is often associated with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. Okay? And we see the pattern again here. Deregulation, privatization, free trade, tax cuts, and reduced social welfare. Increased inequality. Neoliberal policies, these are conservative policies, have been criticized for exacerbating wealth inequality and creating a two-tier system of public services. This is the conservative movement. You've seen it change. Change. Slightly off tone there. Free markets. We're going to deregulate. So, the inequality, the affordability and the housing crisis. You blame it on the liberals. But it's been a conservative policy for decades. Actually, a century. More than a century. And social instability is a result of those policies. This is neoliberalism. So let's go back to my video, and this is just going to be about smaller government, which is a very important thing. This is what the government, the conservatives want to do, smaller government, because there's waste. Well, Doge, down in the United States, because of those inefficiencies and the slashing, just caused planes to fall out of the sky, helicopters to crash into planes. Hadn't seen it under Biden's tenure of 4 years, but within a couple months of Trump and Elon Mussolini slashing everything, planes crashed into everybody, and civil service sector is friggin' being wiped out. You're not seeing the ramifications of that yet, but it's going to hit the states hard. There is a backlash for the people now because of it. Now let's look at another thing here. Let's look at the comments. A surge in engineering and economics. Okay. Let's look at, here's an interesting one. They knew that backwind was invented by Walras, Menger, and Jevons and the rest of them 150 years ago. Although this was classical liberal economy, not neoliberalism. They didn't invent it because it was scientific or empirical. They invented it because the other empirical and scientific school of economics was Marxism. It was invented for entirely political reasons. Well stated. After the Keynesian Revolution, that classical liberal economic theory was dismantled as being false yet again. And this is an important statement. After the Keynesian Revolution, that classical liberal economic theory was dismantled as being false yet again. Keynes being again more based on empiricism and science, but the problem came from the wealthy classes. You see where I'm going here with this one? But the problem came from the wealthy classes. They didn't like paying taxes. Hear it? The wealthy do not like paying taxes and having state intervention in the capital markets. So they launched a counter-revolution with Hayek, Milton Friedman, and the others. That counter-revolution is neoliberalism. Neoliberal and neoclassical economics was never about empirics or science. It's just a political project to undermine opposition to the wealthy class's agenda. That's all it was since it was created back in the 1850s. So there you go. All food for thought there, buccos. Take it for what it's worth. Do your own research. Use discernment to create perspective that guides you in the right direction, to go in the direction you think is most prudent. Damn, did I say that? Damn! I did. Okay. Now, Richard J. Murphy's this gentleman's name. My name's Michael J. So the neoliberal. Take it away, Richard.
But it clearly doesn't work. And we've actually found that their own politicians are admitting it. Nor does small government work, of course. Small government is actually the whole Trump agenda. That is why Musk went into all the departments he did and tried to sack as many people as quickly as he could. But all we end up with is chaos, mayhem, confusion, a failure to supply, the removal of the safety net, the removal of education, the undermining of healthcare, and so much else. Small government is actually just designed to penalise the majority of people in the state who need the government to partner them in their lives to ensure they can survive in this world where the odds are stacked against them. And let's come to the final thing that the neoliberal will believe, and that is that monetarism rules. In other words, interest rate policy must be used to tackle inflation, and it is more important to tackle inflation than to promote full employment. People do not matter. The stability of money does. And why is that? Because the stability of money is essential to make markets operate smoothly in the way that the wealthy think is desirable, and therefore we can sacrifice those who haven't got jobs to the altar of the increase in wealth of the already wealthy. These are the assumptions that neoclassical economics has created within neoliberal economics and which drive our politics. In summary, we have an edifice built upon falsehoods, stupid claims and facts that can't be supported in practice, ideologies that have already been shown to fail, and a belief system that is actually more absurd than almost any religion in the world has ever promoted. Because this is a belief system. Neoliberalism and neoclassical economics.
To be able to present or shed a different light on this topic so that you can look at things differently. Doesn't mean you have to embrace them, but it might help to see a different point of view to help reshape your perspective. May work, may not. It's up to you. The bottom line is, do you want pain and suffering, or do you want to live a life of compassion and benevolence? You want a happy family? It starts by you being happy. Starts by kindness within the person. Then it filters out to your family, your community, and your country. It's up to you. So anyways, use discernment with all that you see. Check everything out. Do not accept the status quo of somebody's statement as being a de facto standard for all to follow. It doesn't work that way. Use discernment, thought, and reason. Does it help people or does it hurt people? It's as simple as that. Take care. Thanks for watching. Comments, questions, comments section. Love and peace to everyone. Take care now. Ciao.